The impudence, the audacity, the unmitigated gall of those knuckleheads of liberty podcasters, daring to voice opinions outside the mainstream of accepted thought. Listen if you dare. It's angry, it's funny, it's even sometimes sad, but it's always based on freedom and justice, as you will see. Here's our host, Jason McPhee.
Welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty. We are coming at you on August 31st, 2022. We've made it through almost 2 years of the Biden administration, which is just incredible. And every day seems like a slog. But today we're rescuing you from that. We have a special guest to talk with today about some of the great work they do for liberty. But before we get into that, let me introduce you to our panel. In our lower left-hand corner, we have Leon, the word Brathwaite, last word in liberty. He is a retired engineer in the state of California. In our upper right-hand corner, we have our screaming eagle of freedom, Tim Everett. He is a pilot in the state of California. In our upper left-hand corner, we have our special guest today, Duane Lester, who is Director of Issues Education at the Grassroots Leadership Academy. And so we're going to get into that. They do a lot of great work in trying to help people organize for liberty, and that's one of the key things we like to talk about on this show. So, Duane, you want to tell us about your organization? And James, maybe we could get the webpage up too, just so people know that there's a place they can go for more information here.
Sure, Jason. Thanks for having me on. The Grassroots Leadership Academy started about 2015, I believe, and it's part of the Americans for Prosperity Foundation. And our whole focus this year and right now is to build up those grassroots leaders, people who are, they're tired of just yelling at the TV. They want something to get done. They're passionate about these principles of liberty and freedom. They want a freer society, but they just don't know where to go or what to do. And so our organization will teach those people passionate about making a change the skills they need to know, the principles, the understanding of the principles, and how to actually make a change, whether it's a local change, a county change, state change, or a federal change. And we're in 35 different states, but I am working in some states that we don't have chapters in. And so I will go anywhere and talk to anyone about anything at any time, which is why, I'm here. I think I said that to you when we spoke in Las Vegas at Freedom Fest.
Yeah. Just one of the great people we meet going to these places. I can't speak well enough about places like Freedom Fest, the Revolution, all those. There are things out there that you can go and just meet all kinds of great people. And that's, that's how we found out about Duane's group. Hey, Duane, by the way, too, do you guys have a program in California? Because we definitely need one.
It's badly needed. No, but let me ask something though. Duane, how do you guys do this? I mean, what do you do? Do you all have seminars, workshops, online forums? What do you guys? How do you guys go about doing this? And it's badly needed in California, as Jason alluded to. But how do you guys go about your work?
Usually, the way we do it is we find local groups who are eager to make a change, and we'll come in and we'll put on seminars open to the public. And traditionally, we've done this over, there have been what we call levels or roles. So our most basic role is the advocate level role. And these are just the basic skills you need to be an advocate, to go out and be a change agent. After that, you have the mobilizer role. And so the way I think about the mobilizer role is, imagine you've got a group and you're taking them to the state capitol. The mobilizer is the one who goes there with them and kind of herds the cats from one office to another and takes them where they're supposed to go. And then the top level is the leader role. And these are the folks who have the vision, the 50,000-foot view of what the change is that needs to happen, and starts putting all the right people in places and making the big change over a longer period of time. So we have trainings for the advocate level, the mobilizer level, and the leader level. And we're happy to come and talk to people about those. It is open to the public. Traditionally, we've only operated in 35 states, but after Freedom Fest, I came back and I said, look, what I saw in Freedom Fest, I felt like I was talking to refugees from California.
We look that bad.
I said, where are you from? We're from California. Can you come and help? Look, I don't know. So I came back and I said, I've met a lot of people from California who said they want to make a change, they want to make a difference, and they'd like our training. We don't have a chapter there. Can we go and train? And I was told, Duane, you can go to California and train. So let me know. I want to come and train. I was just talking with some groups in California. We're going to start with a virtual training probably, and then start doing some in-person trainings I think we're going to start in Sacramento. But look, if I come to California, I want to come to California and train the whole time I'm there. I will do a noon training and then do an evening training. I will train Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 2 times a day. And that's because this is real for me. You know, I'm a father of 9 kids. I don't know if I told you that, Jason, when we met, but my whole motivation is that my children and my grandchildren have a freer society than I have right now. That's what I want. And the thing is, I can't do that by myself. I can't do that by myself. I can't do it with just you 3. We've got to build an army of people out there who know how to go and make these changes for the better in their society, so that government will get out of the way, stop putting up barriers that keep us from living our best lives, and allow us to create the change and be as prosperous as we possibly can be without hurting other people and without taking their stuff.
Duane, this is something I was going to. Well, hold on, just a second, Leon. This was something I was going to ask at the end of the show, but since you brought up that you're coming to Sacramento, how can somebody in Sacramento be aware of when you guys are coming? Is there is there an email letter to sign up for or anything like that? Because I think people would be ecstatic in California if they knew there was some way to organize to change things. If there is some kind of a course or something they can take to help and meet other people.
We do have an email newsletter. I honestly don't know if it's up on our website right now or not. But listen, if you want to email me, I mean, my email is pretty simple. It's just dlester@afphq.org. I don't know if you'll have like liner notes or show liner notes. That shows my age, back when we used to buy, cassette tapes, and then we'd look inside and there were liner notes. If you got some show notes after this, you feel free to put my email in those show notes. People can email me, and when we start getting things sent up or set up, I'll let people know.
Awesome.
Indeed.
Okay.
Indeed. Duane,
Wow.
I mean, obviously, a lot of what we do in life comes back to politics. Do you guys get involved in political campaigns at all?
So we have different. Think of it like this: GLA is a part of the Americans for Prosperity Foundation, which is a C3 organization. We are strictly educational. So what we do is we educate. Now there is another side, what we call our sister organization. They're a C4 organization. They're Americans for Prosperity, and they get involved in legislation and issues like that. And then we have, I believe, a C6, which is Americans for Prosperity Action. They get involved in elections. It's all very structured, and the IRS has set a lot of these things out to keep people, or keep the organization separate. So GLA as an entity does not get involved in elections. We simply exist to educate people on skills or issues. So for example, I could come and say, let me explain to you why cannabis reform is important. I can't come and say, let me explain to you why cannabis reform is important and why you should support this candidate and this legislation.
Got you. Okay.
So it's all based on principles.
Our whole organization is based on a vision of a society of mutual benefit, of keeping government in its proper role, of limited coercion, of basically those principles of human progress that have allowed societies, the most prosperous societies, to grow like we've seen here. We have a respect for dignity. We want mutual benefit. We want openness of ideas and materials and resources and people. We want people to be able to self-actualize. We don't want this top-down bureaucracy telling people what they can and can't do. Government exists to keep people from harming not keep people from harming one another. Government exists to secure and defend the rights of the individual. That's what government should do. It should not tell people you have to buy from this person or you can't buy from this person. So that's our whole mission. Our whole vision is to allow people to live their best lives based on mutual benefit, openness, self-actualization, dignity. And there's another one I'm slipping. I'll have to go back and review these. But yeah, just the basic principles of human progress that have allowed societies to just be as prosperous as possible.
Indeed.
Duane, I have a question I usually try and ask almost every guest that we have, and it's because these principles you just mentioned, they're almost like foreign to so many people. It's not natural that they just learn this stuff through public education, essentially. So, how did you wake up to these principles? How did you sort of wake up to becoming an advocate for liberty? You mentioned that you had 9 kids and how important that is. Was that all it took, or what was that moment?
Before he answers that question, we have to call him to question his sincerity when he's got 9 kids and his hair doesn't look as white as mine. I'm saying that this guy's got some hair coloring going on there. And,
no, I travel for a living, Tim. I travel a lot.
Okay, so you get out of the house. Okay.
I am on the road very often, and when I come home, it's just like, "Are you one of mine?"
Now we know how you became an advocate.
Once I lost my seat at the dinner table, I said, "I've got to go do something else."
Okay,
so how I got
the question, I can't remember what it was.
How I woke up to this. I remember. It was probably, I don't remember when, it was in the 2000s, early 2000, probably 2000, I started paying attention to politics, and I wasn't really that into it. And then 9/11 happened, and I said, okay, I need to start paying attention to what's going on. And my whole life I'd been taught to follow one party, and I started looking and said, I don't really agree with the principles that they espouse. I've always just had a problem with authority, and you can take that all the way back. Every principle I've ever had will agree with that statement. My parents would not argue with that. Most of my supervisors would not argue with that. And so I started looking at what was going on and just bought full into that tribal party mentality. Okay, I am a part of this tribe right here. This is my party. They can do no wrong. And just full-throated team, raw. And then started paying attention. And I remember my wife was helping me a bit. And she's like, if they do this, then it's going to result in this. And I thought, okay, I hadn't thought of that. And what really woke me up, what shook me out of that team mentality was George Bush saying, I have to abandon free market principles to save the free market.
Yes.
And I said, wait, what?
I remember that, yes.
That doesn't make any sense at all. And so then that really shook me out of the party mentality, and I started really looking deeply at principles. And at the time, I had a job. I was a nuclear security officer, which is the easiest job I ever learned to hate. I mean, basically, I was insurance. I walked around for 12 hours from box to box and read books all day, and it was the worst job. I mean, unfulfilling as a job you ever had. But what it did give me was an opportunity to read. And in 2006, I made a goal. I said, I wonder if I can read 100 books this year. So I set that goal of reading 100 books, and I completed that goal in early December, and then set another goal of never doing anything that stupid again. That was just ridiculous.
That's debatable. That's debatable. But okay.
I mean, I would get going, and I'd have a good run, and then I'd be like, I'm so tired of reading these things, and I'd go and read something bubblegum, like a Patricia Cornwell novel. I'd be like, I just got to get a book in, and I'd read that in like 2 days. But I remember I read Larry Elder's books, and they had a big impact on me. Read a lot. I remember I read Atlas Shrugged. That completely threw off my average. That book took me 2 weeks because I remember I'd read like 10 pages and be like, I have no idea what she just said. I have to go back.
Yes.
And
it's dense in some places. Yes.
It seemed like she was angry at the reader. It was like as I'm reading through Galt's soliloquy, I'm like, at this point, she's just mad that we haven't gotten it by now.
She's gonna take that big book and hit you on the head.
If you haven't got it by now, you're not gonna get it. So just take this. Here's 100 pages of one guy dialoguing. but it was that year when I really started looking at principles and what mattered and how they were being applied. And yeah, it was a long process of discovery and realizing that principles are far more important than party politics or tribalism.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Yeah. Well, and certainly that's stuff we just love to share with the readers, how somebody came to figure this stuff out, because it's not obvious a lot. I didn't figure it out till my 30s, and I know we all had a different journey. Leon was quite a lefty, I guess, when he first came here to this country.
As I've said before, I was a socialistic Democrat when I came to America in 1977. Okay,
yeah.
But I think when my son was born, and just around the same time, I found Thomas Sowell, and it changed my life completely.
Yeah, Thomas Sowell is one of those people that I've read, and I just can't get enough of. I was literally on my lunch hour yesterday watching Thomas Sowell talk about a conflict of vision, constrained versus constrained thinking.
I've read that book. Yes.
And The Conflict of Visions was one of those books I read in 2006. Fabulous book. And then, of course, you can't get enough of basic economics. So.
Oh yeah, I also read that one too. Yes.
Well, he's a good one for becoming humble about how intelligent you think you might happen to be. Just got to read one of his.
Yes.
Read a short paragraph.
Well, that's the beauty of books, is that there's always something out there you haven't learned and you haven't read or you haven't considered. There was something I just read the other day. It was like in one of the opening chapters of Deirdre McCloskey's Why Liberalism Works, and what she means by liberalism is classical liberalism.
Yes.
And it was something that another person had wrote, and his name forgets me right now, but it was really a profound moment when he explained that most people live like libertarians. Most people live their lives like libertarians. They don't hurt people. They don't take their stuff. If they want something done, they use their words. They don't force people. They don't attack people. If you want a cart from somebody at the grocery store, you say, "Hey, are you using that cart?" You don't come up and hit them with something or get the store manager to use violence to get the cart. So most people live like libertarians. We don't hurt people. We don't take their stuff. But we turn around and we ask government to do those things for us.
Yes.
And I hadn't ever considered the fact that most people live according to libertarian principles. I just wish we could get
that raises
by them.
Yes, but that raises a very interesting question, though, Duane. If and I totally agree, and I never thought about it, but I totally agree that we live generally as libertarians, but small L libertarians, that is.
Right.
But the question then becomes why it is that this concept is so foreign to so many people. I mean, you honestly, you go to the average person on the street and try to talk to them about some of these principles, and they might look like you're from a man from Mars.
Yeah. That's one thing that I have fought against, or fought that mental model. It's one of the most troublesome mental models that I've faced in all of my trainings. And I say I've seen this mental model from the left to the right. The only political group I haven't seen this mental model from are our friends, the anarchists. And this mental model is, if government isn't involved, it won't be done right. And that is a flawed mental model. And you see, I see this all the time when I'm training, because I'll take it while I'm trying to explain people the proper role of government. I will take a very extreme position. And I'll give you a story of a time in Indiana. I was trying to explain the idea of the proper role of government, and give the idea that government doesn't have to do all these things. And so what I said was, let's do a thought experiment. Let's imagine that tomorrow the governor comes out and says, effective immediately, there's not one more red set going towards education in Indiana. Effective tomorrow, no more public schools, no more teachers, no more administration, no more public funding, no taxpayer dollars at all for education. Would the parents in Indiana just look at that and say, I guess my kids are just going to be stupid? Of course they wouldn't. What would they do? What would people do if government didn't do that? And that question right there has helped more people realize the potential of the institutions of education, the institutions of community, the institutions of business, of solving problems outside of government. Because in that room that day, they came up with all these different solutions that could happen that could solve that problem. A lot of the same solutions we saw when government did stop doing education during COVID, when they just simply backed away and shut the schools down. We saw all of those same solutions. But there was one person in the back of that room who could not get past the idea that if government wasn't involved in schools, it would not work. And it was, well, if we don't have public schools, then there would be kids that get abused and nobody will ever notice. And I said, well, are kids getting abused now and nobody's noticing? Well, yeah. I said, are kids getting abused by teachers? So could it be that we're making it worse by having the schools?
Yes.
And we had these, and I'm not saying anything negative about teachers. I'm doing a thought experiment. What if government didn't do that? And that's all based on something that comes from Thomas Sowell, and I believe it was in A Conflict of Visions. And what Thomas Sowell said was, there are no solutions. There are only trade-offs.
Yes, it was conflict. Yes,
and it's getting to that idea that, look, government does this. There are sets of trade-offs. Are those trade-offs better or worse than if they didn't do that? And what is the best set of trade-offs we can get to? And what we know from history is that when people are allowed to be free and that their rights are protected, that's generally the best set of trade-offs that you can hope for. But most people don't understand that because we don't live in a society anymore where government isn't involved. So we talked earlier about those institutions, and we recognize 4 key institutions in society. There is a proper role for government, securing and defending the rights of the individual. But then there's the roles of education, and I don't just mean brick and mortar schools. I mean like lifelong education that we've been talking about this whole time, reading books, watching YouTube videos, learning more and more about this. That doesn't just have to come from government. We need to be involved and energetic in our own lifelong education. Then there's the proper role of business, making a profit without coercion, making a profit without forcing people to buy your stuff, or making a profit without forcing people out of your market. Making a profit because you've made someone else's lives better. That's the proper role of business. And then the proper role of community, taking up those issues that should be handled with rhetoric, with cooperation, with competition, but not coercion. And we have a society that doesn't really understand. Some of us do, but the norm isn't to go to your neighbor and talk to them when they have a problem. The norm is to go to City Hall and talk to them.
You know what, Duane. I've listened to what you have just said, and I agree about what was just spoken. But it raises the question, even more fundamental question: why do so many of our fellow citizens become so seduced by the government and the principles of socialism and all these other things that lead to all sorts of complacency and dependency upon the very government that we know is the cause of most problems in our society?
Why, in other words, why does that free lunch trick work so often?
True. Well said, Jason. Thank you for putting it so simply. Absolutely.
It's an important question, and I have a tendency, because I read a lot, and like I said, I'm the nerd that watches Thomas Sowell interviews during their lunch break. So I'm constantly quoting people, and someone said to me once, Duane, great people don't quote great people. And I was like, that's fine. I don't see myself as a great person, so I'm happy to quote Thomas Sowell anytime. But at this time, I'm going to quote to you from Milton Friedman, who has a video out there about the morality of capitalism. And he talks about why people are attracted to socialism. And he makes his point of this is something that I've used in other presentations. There's what socialism promises. There's what collectivism promises. There's that promise of utopia. If we just do this, it will solve all the problems. If we just do this, we'll have equality. If we just use this violence here, things will be better for everyone else. And there's that promise of what these policies will bring. But as we pointed out earlier, there are no solutions. There are only trade-offs. And so what we're talking about are different sets of trade-offs. It's more important to look at what a policy produces than what a policy promises. And if we can point that out to people, if we can help people understand that, that's when we make a change. And I want to emphasize, you don't go around and say, this is what it produces. They have to discover that for themselves. People won't lie people won't believe the facts that you give them, but they have a hard time arguing with themselves.
So you have to abandon the free market to save the free market.
No.
No, I mean that's what you're saying, is that you promise these promises, save the free market, and your solution might be abandoning the free market to do it. So in other words, you've got this coercion that you're about to employ to achieve utopia goal A, and this is your excuse. I mean, because that's the question. Why are people hiring the hitman to kill their wife, essentially? And why are the people hiring the hitman, aka government, to bring about some social change that they deem somehow beneficial either to them or to society in general, because they have such lofty goals for the collective?
Tim, we're getting really close to the end here, and I was wondering if Duane could share with us maybe a few successes and any important points if he wanted to work in an answer for you there too. That'd be great, but sorry.
I just want to say a lot of our trainings that we've done, I mean, like I said, often we don't go in and say, we're going to train you to go do this specific thing. But what people do with our trainings afterwards, completely up to them. And there have been people who've taken our trainings and are now sitting in Congress. There have been people who've taken our trainings and have stopped tax increases in their cities. I know for a fact that one of our classes is responsible for the longest city council meeting in Missoula, Montana history. Kept them there until 2 or 3 in the morning, and that's fantastic. So if that's something folks are interested in California, let me know. I'm happy to come out there and train people to make a difference.
Awesome. Well, we're definitely interested out here, and so we definitely are looking forward to offerings that you'll have in California, because as you can see, I mean, everything seems to spill out from California to the rest of the nation as far as these kind of anti-liberty type of proposals. So, any quick last thoughts or words for the audience, Duane?
I'll leave you with this. I know things can at times seem a little bit overwhelming. I know that sometimes things can seem a little bit impossible, but an organized minority will defeat a disorganized majority every single time. So all we have to do is learn how to do this, get organized, and start making a difference.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us, Duane. And for the viewers, thank you for watching. And until the next time, stay free.
Yes, indeed. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, always and forever.
Thank you for listening to the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. Find us on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, your favorite podcast network, and at knuckleheadsofliberty.com.